Hi, welcome. Here we have Jordan, who went on the Nicaragua Youth Culture Literacy and Media program. Welcome, Jordan.
Thank you.
Tell us about your experience.
So I had a really great experience when I was in Nicaragua. I lived with a host family in Managua, and then I went to classes in Managua. I went to Spanish classes and some other like literacy focused and also Nicaragua historical classes with a bunch of guest lecturers. And those were really rewarding, especially the guest lecturers, because I met some of the most amazing people. Like I met a woman who was the only woman involved in like the group that took the Palacio Nacional during the revolution. And it's a really big privilege that we get when we get to meet all of these really wonderful people and hear their stories. And also a little intimidating, but in a good way. And my host family was really, really kind, and I got very close to them. I think that's a special thing about SIT is sort of that they have the host families, and then that they have like very tight relationships with the host families. You know, everyone is really connected. Also, the program director, Anne, and everyone who works with her is really focused on making sure that that experience is rewarding. And I think everyone that I know on my program had a really good experience with their host families. And then I also traveled a lot. I went to the Campo, which is rural Nicaragua in the north, which was a really impactful experience and really different from anything I'd ever been to before. I also went to the coast, the Caribbean coast of Nicaragua, and then I went to Cuba. And all of those were really great trips. They are similar to school in the sense that we get a lot of guest lectures from people in the region, which is cool because we get just a lot of information about Nicaragua from a lot of different perspectives. And then Cuba, which is the comparative study part of the program, which was amazing. And, you know, and I wish it could have been a whole other semester that I could have spent there, but then I wouldn't have gotten Nicaragua. And then after my experience being on the Caribbean coast of Nicaragua for 5 days, I decided to go back for my independent study project, which is what SIT does, where they basically help you develop your own concept and research framework to do human-based research about a topic of your choosing. And I went there with sort of a topic and really got it molded once I was in Bluefields, which is one of the bigger cities on the southern part of the coast. And so I did a research project about community radio there. And that was really, really cool. It, if nothing else, made me feel self-reliant in a way that I hadn't before, just to be in charge of what I was doing every single day and to be like, well, now you have this interview or you have this interview, and really learning as I went along, but also having support. I had an advisor in the city and also could lean on the people at SIT Managua, my director and everything. The ISP is a really cool experience, and I was really nervous before I went there, you know, and I was sort of like, oh, why hadn't I chosen like some odd program where I could just, you know, stay in like Granada and not do anything. But I'm really, really glad that I did do the ISP, especially because now it's actually impacting my just like what I want to do with my life. Like I realized that I actually really liked research, and also how interested I was in media in the developing world, about media in Latin America, and really feel a lot more confident that I can guide myself academically by myself, not necessarily belonging to like a, you know, because in college you really belong to like a class or an institution or whatever, but that I can guide myself academically sort of on my own. So it was a really cool experience overall. I miss it a lot.
Great, and tell us about your ISP.
Yeah, so my ISP is about participative radio, and the way that I found out about that was just that I got there and I started interviewing people, major radio stations, because during the Nicaraguan Revolution they had a literacy crusade. Part of the literacy crusade was sort of to popularize all of the media there, which is a really cool concept. And what they basically did was they took people that were working for the Revolutionary Party and sent them to like Cuba or Ecuador or wherever to sort of pick up like what sorts of ways they were trying to democratize the radio stations and the media in general, which is really cool because before that, during the Somoza regime, all media was controlled by Somoza and his whole government. So they sent people to go learn and then came back and brought this idea of participative and popular radio, which is basically, it's community grassroots radio. And it's manifested on a couple of different stations. So I focused on 4 different stations. One was a government station, one was a Sandinista party affiliated station, one was independent, and one was the university station. And then I talked with people who worked there. I also talked with other people that were just sort of like experts in media. I talked with a lot of journalists, but also my project had started looking at the music that was on the radio, because in Bluefields and on the Caribbean coast of Nicaragua, it's so interesting. I got there and people were listening to country music, like US West, like Southwest country music. And I thought that was so strange. So I wanted to start getting off with that. So I also talked to a lot of people who are, you know, the local, I don't know what the word is in English, but like the people that are putting on the music on the radio, and got a bunch of their music. And I ended up using that to present my research. So I got a bunch of interviews, I put all my research together. I sort of tried to define what this kind of radio was, and also what its challenges were, because there are plenty of funding challenges and issues of gender and representation of indigenous cultures, and sort of put that all together and then made it into a short radio segment with the music that they had given me. And that was really a lot of the emphasis of the research that we're doing, is that it should be really reciprocal, you know, that we shouldn't just be going there and like writing our academic paper and leaving. So I was able to make this radio show, which was a lot more accessible to everyone, and then send it back to the radio stations that I had worked with, which I feel really good about. And I'm glad that I had the opportunity to do that, and also sort of the freedom to be allowed to other things.
Excellent. Excellent. And what do you think it sounds like you talked about this before, but what do you think this program has influenced you? It seems to have, you know, had a change in your life or anything like that?
Yeah, it's made me a little bit more, actually a lot more, like I said, comfortable with sort of pursuing my varied interests. I feel like when I was there, there was just a lot of what we were learning and everything made me realize how much things are interconnected, how much media is intertwined with social justice, or, you know, how much research can affect a lot of things. And that made me feel like I have more freedom in my own life to pursue the things that I'm interested in, not just be like, you know, graduate, get your job, blah, 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 you know, benefits, whatever. And then, let's see, I mean, on a more personal level, I think that the program helped me to just be more aware of sort of where I come from and the life that I lead, and how, I guess, how privileged I am. You know, being in Nicaragua is a really different experience. It was the first time I'd ever been to a quote unquote third world country. And I think that it was very, just sort of, it impacted me a lot that not only was, you know, I living a life that maybe I hadn't totally thought about,